Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Wednesday, July 22nd. I'm Gary Stevens. We'll be open line following the 11 o'clock news block, but we are pleased to be joined for the first time as the Executive Director of the Macatawa Area Coordinating Council by Tyler Kent. Tyler, good morning and welcome to WHTC.
Good morning, Gary, and appreciate the time with you this morning.
Tyler's on a Zoom connection. Of course, you can join the conversation, not with the Zoom connection, but by the telephone at 395-1450, 395-1450. Before we get to some of the issues involving the MACC, we want to first sort of lay the ground rules because some people might hear the name Macatawa Area Coordinating Council, and they are wondering exactly what is the Macatawa Area Coordinating Council. Tyler, tell us all about it.
So we're a non-for-profit. We're kind of in between non-for-profit and government entity. So typically what we do is we collaborate with the local governments, 7 townships, 2 cities, 2 counties, 2 road commissions, and a representative of MACC Transit. And we collaborate and work on regional issues and fund projects, state, federal projects through the MACC for road improvements, watershed issues, those types of things.
It's not necessarily a novel thing for this particular part. There are other such collaborations across the state, I believe.
Correct. Yeah, there are, I believe, 11 or so organizations, MPOs, metropolitan planning organizations. Those state and federal dollars are funneled through those organizations and then dispersed out to the local governments.
It's almost as if you're a go-between between maybe Lansing/Washington and the local governments. It's not exactly a direct purpose, but you do work sort of in a united way.
Exactly. So we work with Federal Highway as well as MDOT with the dollars that come to the MACC region and then disperse those, like I said, out to those local governments.
Tyler Kent, tell us a little bit about yourself. Of course, you've taken over as the full-time executive director of the MACC when Steve Boltice stepped aside to become the administrator of Holland Township. A little bit about your background, what you bring to the table here at the MACC.
Sure. So I grew up in mid-Michigan in the Olivet Bellevue area. I went to college at Ferris State, graduated from Ferris in 2014. I took a position as the assistant planner in Valparaiso, Indiana. I practiced and worked there for 15 years as between the assistant planner, the transportation director, and then the planning director, overseeing development, redevelopment, and the startup and operation of 2 transit services. One that ran local service or interurban service in the city of Valparaiso, and then a transit service from Valparaiso into downtown Chicago. It was a commuter service for individuals that lived in Valparaiso but worked in downtown Chicago.
It seems as if when this opportunity came up, it's almost as if, hey, I've done a lot of the stuff that they're asking for already. It's almost right up my alley.
Right. Yeah, I felt it was a good fit. I was very excited about the opportunity. And I was really excited about moving back to Michigan and to serve the state and the area that I grew up in.
Let's step aside the COVID-19 outbreak. Put that aside for a moment if we can.
Yeah.
What are the biggest challenges right now to this region? How you see it and how it can be addressed through the MACC?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. Advances in technology. I mean, it's a very fast-paced world that we live in today. I mean, we're communicating via Zoom. 2 or 3 years ago, that wasn't an option. You've got change in advances in vehicles that talk to one another now. There's thoughts that in the future that those will be, we won't drive those vehicles. They'll be operated via 5G service as well as computers, those types of things. So the advancement of technologies, fiber networks, very important to be able to communicate and share data between hospitals and medical and businesses. There are a whole host of things that over the next few years we'll be tackling and keeping a pulse on as technology moves forward. I think that's really one of the major things. You know, working with our agencies with issues of the watershed, Lake MACC, high water levels is an issue, you know, in the environment and those types of things. So there are a lot of things that we've got to really take a look at, as well as our infrastructure. Our infrastructure is dated. You know, we're pouring money into that infrastructure, but as technologies change, it's going to be interesting to see the advancement of roadways and such.
Do you see your role, Tyler Kent, more like a city manager where you are working at the pleasure of the elected officials? Do you see your role in the MACC as sort of like working at the pleasure of the entities involved? Or do you have a say a little bit on some of the policy or some of the things that the MACC wants to do?
It's a mixture of both, Gary. Working with our local leaders as well as trying to navigate and work, you know, moving the MACC forward with the initiatives that are set in place through our policy board and the executive committee.
Yeah, I just was kind of wondering about how much input you would have, or I think it's the best way of putting it, the staff would have in terms of this.
I rely on staff to bring new thoughts and ideas to the MACC organization, as well as the local leaderships with the city managers and the mayors and such, as well as township personnel on you know, bringing those ideas and thoughts to us and then trying to implement those in the region.
If you have a question for Tyler Kent, he is the Executive Director of the Macatawa Area Coordinating Council. He'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450, 395-1450. And a little bit of an aside, we did take a question from an online listener through the social medias. Our social media sites are 99.7 and 1450 WHTC, as well as W1450 WHTC on Twitter, 99.7 and 1450 WHTC on Facebook. Direct messaging is the best way we can be able to get that question before we leave air at the top of the hour with Tyler Kent. Now let's deal with the COVID-19 situation, its impact on the MACC and its entities. We have seen communities trying to make sure balanced budgets are taken care of, essential needs are taken care of. Where does the MACC stand in all of this? This is more of a case of each individual entity, each individual municipality dealing with the issue, or does the MACC sort of help in a collective sort of way?
Well, the MACC could be impacted with the gas tax with the reduction in miles traveled this year through, you know, those impacts through MDOT and such. You know, we're waiting to see what those numbers are going to be. I was in the process of moving up to Holland from Valparaiso when everything in March, and I just saw the impact traveling back and forth. When we were making that move, there would be times where I wouldn't see a vehicle for 10 or 15 miles, and that's unheard of on I-94 and 196 here. So there's going to be an impact. I don't know what those dollar amounts are going to be at this point. You know, I'm working with MDOT and listening in on their conversations and such to see what those impacts are going to be. But there's going to probably be an impact on funding for the next few years on roadway improvement projects.
Roadway improvement, and that, you know, and we probably are well aware that that was a hot button topic 2 years ago during the gubernatorial elections, and the current governor in part won her position because she wanted to fix the roads. I'm not going to use the extra word there. We don't need to do that. It's well documented. But in our area, we're seeing some of that work being done. this is 196 right now. We are hopefully we'll see some 196 work done, say south of Holland, that road the way there down towards Saugatuck. Yeah, that we might need the chiropractor after riding that roadway.
Our cars will.
Yeah, the pay me now or pay me later type situation, but also the long-standing issue of maybe getting a bypass for US 31. That's been a long-standing issue since I've been here, and I've been here since '01. Sort of complimenting 120th Avenue. We got to wait a while in terms of those projects because of this COVID-19 situation.
Yeah, I agree.
If you got a question for Tyler Kent, he'll be happy to answer it at 395-1450, 395-1450. How much does your office work with communities when they say they have a problem with a certain aspect of their government? They're saying, we got this issue here. We're looking for some advice. Can you be a clearinghouse in that regard? Or is it more of a case of, well, we'll bring it up in the policy committee meeting during the month?
Well, it depends on the issue at hand, Gary. We've had some issues that have come to the MACC, and we've created a board, or I wouldn't even say a board, a working group that would meet to discuss the issues at hand and what those solutions would be. We bring those community leaders, whoever they may be, to the table, discuss it, and then try to help find a solution to that. So that's part of the role of the MACC, is to be able to help communities, because typically it's more than one community or more than one section of government that has an issue. They bring that to us, and we help try to find a solution to that.
The reason why I sort of brought this up is this is more of a regional question, and it was a standing concern before COVID-19 hit, and that is dealing with affordable housing. And that is something that has been a well talked up point in the city of Howland, but the entire area as well. What is the MACC addressing on this particular issue?
Well, I'm new to the organization. I have not had a chance to speak with local leaders with regard to that. My past as a planning director for the city of Valparaiso, that same issue is pretty much within every community. Cost of land, cost of construction materials, finding the labor to build homes. It's an issue that the majority of communities are struggling with, and trying to find a resolution to that. There's no silver bullet for any one community. It's just working hand in hand to try to address those issues with those local leaders, and garnering support for affordable housing or workforce housing or whatever type of housing that each community is striving for and looking for.
Tyler, we got a press release from the office of Congressman Bill Heisinger talking about a statement by the Environmental Protection Agency announcing that the MACC and the Belle Isle Conservancy down over in Detroit are the recipients of the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative Trash Free Waters Grants. Tell us a little bit about that if you can.
Yeah, so we received some funding to help clean up the lake shores, removing trash and debris from the lakes. So we're working with our local governmental partners in that to get the equipment that's needed and the manpower needed to clean up the lakes. So you'll see us out there. I think it'll start in September, October time frame, to be able to go out and start cleaning up those lakes. And I think some of the efforts have already started with some of our local partners.
And that is something that before you came on board, Tyler, that was something that has been a key thing with the MACC about trying to deal with the Macatawa watershed.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we've had many years of efforts of working in and around the area to clean up Lake Mac, working with our local farmers to plant cover crops to help keep the phosphorus from flowing into Lake Mac and cleaning that up. So we appreciate all the partners and all the efforts from the community and working to clean the lake there.
With all due respect, Tyler, and it's something maybe some of your staff have been longer working at than you've been on board. The goal of trying to get rid of what some call Lake Macatawa has been ongoing, but these people are saying we can make it clean and clear again. I hope it's not a pipe dream there, Tyler.
No, there's been a lot of efforts on helping clean up Lake Mac. We've done a lot of studies, and there's been a lot of reports done that the efforts at hand are in fact helping clean that up. And it's working with our local partners, the farmers and the developers and the cities and townships, all working in the same effort to help clean up the watershed.
Now, the policy committee, normally, I believe, fourth Monday of the month is the policy committee meeting. So tell us a little bit about what perhaps will be discussed when the leaders of the MACC get together for the policy committee, which is basically the overall governing committee of the MACC get together.
Yeah, so we are meeting via Zoom. We have not met in person since March. But we've discussed a number of things. A lot of it, recently we've been working on the TIP, which is the Transportation Improvement Program. That's a 4-year plan to help fund local projects in and around the area, both that is from a state standpoint as well as locally. And then dispersing those dollars into the community through the dollars from Federal Highway and MDOT. So that's a lot of the efforts that we've been working on recently, as well as passing the budget, which was passed last month.
Yeah, it is tough times right now, but sometimes getting together and having these types of meetings certainly can at least come to a resolution and try to move forward on that. Besides doing the lake cleanup, besides the COVID-19 situation, besides the roads, what other things are we sort of looking at that, shall we say, are goals for the region over the next quarter or even the next half year?
Yeah, within the next couple of months, I'm working on scheduling the strategic plan for the MACC. So that'll lay out. The intent is to lay out what we're going to be working on over the next few years, so that we are able to measure our progress, moving forward, as well as, again, trying to figure out what those impacts of COVID are going to be from a budget standpoint, working with MDOT, Federal Highway, to see what those impacts are going to be. Because as you had mentioned, improvements to 196 there on the south side of the sorry about that.
That's all right.
Side of the city of Howland there. That's, I think, scheduled for hopefully next year. But depending upon the impacts of COVID, it may be minimized, or they may have to push it off a year. So we're going to have to follow that and make sure that we're on top of it.
Tyler Kent, the Executive Director of the Macatawa Area Coordinating Council, I want to thank you very much for joining us today on WHTC's Talk of the Town. We'll put a link to the MACC, THE-MACC.org. We put the podcast of our conversation up on our website at WHTC.com in a little bit. Tyler, thank you very much. Hope to chat with you again soon.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much. That's Tyler Kent on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC. Steve Kathan is standing by. CBS News is next, followed by WHTC News with Pickering Nickel.